had this phone in my closet for a few years going unused, and recently I've noticed some YouTubers making some videos about how to connect, we'll call this an old analog phone, how do you connect this to like your home assistant or to an AI agent so that you can make and receive phone calls. What I want to do in this video is just describe what I learned this weekend, some of the hardware I use, some of the software libraries I've used. This is a resurrection of a project that I worked on a few years ago. I had used this as a prop at a murder mystery party my wife and I were hosting at our home. We connected this to OpenAI so that when you took the phone off the hook, it would auto dial an AI agent, it would listen to what you were asking, it would pass that to ChatGPT, who was role-playing as a deputy sheriff. He would then respond to you and would answer questions that you had about the party. I do think that using analog phones with AI agents as part of a sort of a game mechanic, as part of, like I said, like a murder mystery, as an escape, part of an escape room prop, just sort of exploring that space and just think about what are some of the creative things that we can do with this. Okay, so here's a quick tour of the hardware that I used. I've just got a Raspberry Pi 5 here in the box. What the Raspberry Pi 5 is doing is it is mounted here on the back of this touchscreen display. There's the Pi 5. This is running a Debian version of Linux that's running a software called Asterix. Asterix is a PBX system that basically manages all the endpoints, all the phone endpoints that are on your system. So this phone connects to the Asterix PBX via this Grandstream analog telephone adapter. If you can see, it has a network cable and then the RJ11 cable. So conceptually, that's kind of all you need to know about what it's doing. Running inside here is a HTTP server that holds the configuration, and then of course all the technical stuff necessary to bridge the two. Once this is plugged into here, this gives this a dial tone and all the features that you expect on a phone. But that dial tone is nothing if there's not anyone listening to the numbers, so that when you dial numbers here, those get passed on to a dial plan running on Asterix, and then Asterix decides what to do with that dial plan. The simplest thing you could imagine is that it just calls another phone on your network that is associated with that number. In our specific case, though, that number will be associated with a program. And so that could be a program that's running on this server. It could be another client that's running on the network. What I decided to do was, instead of using the built-in programs that sort of run with Asterix, like voicemail, interactive voice response, I just created my own sort of client that runs on the network using another library, which I'll describe here in a second. So those are the hardware components. It's pretty simple. Your phone connects to your network via an analog telephone adapter that configures the phone and tells it, hey, this phone will be extension 1234 on the PBX, and then the PBX decides what to do with routing of calls. So those are the three hardware components. Very simple. There's a ton of documentation and videos online for how to configure a PBX and an ATA. When I was showing you the hardware, I hinted that somewhere you're going to have a client application that accepts and receives calls. So the way I coded that, there's lots of ways you can do this. I used a C library called PJSIP or PJSIP. This C library comes with some amazing examples and some great documentation. And I basically, in Visual Studio, just wrote a really simple C application that extended one of their examples. And so what it does is it calls an extension on the network, plays an audio file, and that's all it does. Okay, I'm gonna real quickly describe this flowchart of what I do at this point. So I can launch a batch file that calls OpenAI's HTTP endpoints. It first just says, give me a chat completion for a prompt. So it gets a prompt response. It then passes that to a text-to-speech engine, which for this iteration is also using OpenAI's text-to-speech engine. In the future, I probably will use something else because OpenAI does not appear to be supporting custom voices, which I do think is a direction I will be taking this. I have to do a quick transformation of the WAV file that comes back because it's not the correct WAV format, so FFmpeg does that on the command line. I then pass that WAV file as a parameter into my C application, which initiates a phone call based on a configuration to some endpoint on my network. Asterix, through its dial plan, bridges that connection, and the analog phone rings, and you hear the audio. Okay, so this is just a quick demonstration of the applications that I talked through, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick off the batch script It takes about 15 seconds for the process to walk through, calling OpenAI, generating a transcript, converting it to audio, and then passing it to the phone. So here in just a second, the phone will ring, and we'll hear the audio. The prompt I used was to just give me a summary of the news events of the day. So that is what we expected to be talking about. So we see that it's now made the phone call, and if we listen, I'm not sure how good that audio will come through. I did code it that if you hang up, it'll call you back immediately if it's been less than 30 seconds. So I don't know why I use that as a pattern, but the idea being to force you to have to listen to whatever message it deems important. And then, of course, if you don't listen to the message, it will just keep calling back. So anyway, that's the application. That's the implementation. If you do find this interesting, please like this video, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback and see if there's enough interest to continue exploring. So let me know what you guys think.